The smell of smoke still lingered along the ridge when Evelyn Carter climbed out of her old Subaru, the one her late husband used to call our stubborn mule. The forest around her, once a cathedral of ponderosa pines, now stood charred and skeletal, their shadows stretching thin in the morning light like ghosts refusing to leave. Fire crews had contained the blaze 2 days earlier, but the ground still breathed out heat in slow, painful exhales. Evelyn hoisted her weathered camera bag onto her shoulder, wincing as her joints protested. She wasn't out here for adventure. She wasn't out here for nostalgia. She was simply doing what she'd done her whole life, trying to find meaning in the ruins. A conservation group had asked her to document the fire damage, photos that might help secure funding for wildlife recovery. She wasn't paid much, and she didn't need to be. After her husband passed, money was never the thing she missed. It was presence. It was purpose. Just as she framed a burned cedar trunk through her lens, a sound broke the silence, faint, strained, like a house cat's cry mixed with something wild. Evelyn froze. The sound came again, a sharp, trembling rumble that tugged at something deep inside her chest. She lowered her camera. "Hello?" she called, her voice barely more than a whisper. Another cry. Not human, not familiar, but pleading. Instinct guided her toward the sound, stepping over fallen logs, weaving past blackened stumps that still carried thin threads of smoke. She moved slowly, carefully, as if the forest might crumble under her feet if she dared to hurry. When she reached a small clearing, her breath left her entirely. A lioness, young, beautiful, lay motionless on her side, her torso partly buried in ash. Her golden coat was marred by burns and soot. But Evelyn saw something else too, a small, round puncture near the ribs, a wound too clean, too precise, to be caused by falling branches or flame. A bullet. Someone had fired a gun in the middle of a wildfire. But it wasn't the lioness that made Evelyn's knees weaken. It was the trembling ball of fur pressed against her belly, crying, nudging, refusing to accept death. A lion cub, no bigger than a house cat, but unmistakably wild. He let out another pitiful roar, muffled as he buried his head into his mother's burnt fur. The sound cracked something inside her, something she thought had long turned to stone. It was the same sound her husband had made during his last hours in the hospital, when he didn't have words anymore, only broken breaths and the quiet plea not to be left alone. Evelyn fell to her knees. "Oh, sweetheart!" The cub startled and looked at her. His eyes, wide, amber, frantic, met hers with a mix of fear and unbearable grief. For a moment, nothing stirred. Only a woman who had lost everything and a cub who had lost even more. "Easy," she whispered, reaching out her hand. "I'm not here to hurt you." He didn't move. A soft, warning growl vibrated in his throat, but it was weak, almost apologetic. Evelyn shrugged off her jacket, her husband's old hiking coat, and slowly draped it near the cub, letting him sniff it. He pressed his head into the fabric as if recognizing the warmth in it, the softness, the shelter. When she gathered him gently into her arms, he whimpered, but didn't resist. His tiny claws clung to the coat as though it were the last solid thing in a world that had collapsed. "You're coming with me," she murmured. "I'm not leaving you here." The weight of the cub felt heavier than expected, not physically, but symbolically. She could feel the responsibility settling in her chest, right next to her grief. As she carried him toward the car, Evelyn paused, glancing back once at the lioness. She whispered a soft promise under her breath, one only the wind could hear. On the bumpy drive home, the cub lay curled in her lap, breathing unevenly. Evelyn tried to steady her own nerves. She knew full well that keeping a wild animal, even temporarily, could bring trouble, maybe even legal trouble, the kind people hired a lawyer for. But something stronger than caution had taken hold of her, something maternal, something defiant. "Little one," she said quietly, "you and I, we'll figure it out." He lifted his head weakly, resting it on her forearm. Evelyn smiled for the first time in what felt like ages. "By the way," she added softly, "my grandson keeps telling me I should get on the internet more. He says people share stories, raw, honest stories. If anyone out there is listening to this someday, feel free to join us at Whispering Hearts. We could use more good souls following along." It didn't sound like an advertisement, it felt like an invitation. At home, she cleared a soft spot near the fireplace, something warm, something safe, and laid the cub down on a folded blanket. He curled into the fabric as if it were the only home he'd ever known. Evelyn sat beside him, brushing away bits of soot from his fur. "Your life shouldn't have started this way," she whispered. "But you're not alone anymore." Outside, the wind rustled through the pines, scattering ash like snow. Inside, in a small cabin that had known too much silence, a new heartbeat joined her own. "Welcome home," she breathed. "Ash." And for the first time since her husband died, Evelyn felt something she almost didn't recognize: a spark. The cubs slept for nearly an hour after Evelyn carried him into the cabin. His sides rose and fell in uneven rhythms, as if each breath still negotiated with the smoke trapped in his lungs. Evelyn sat on the floor beside him, her back against the old cedar dresser, listening. Every soft exhale tugged her into a deeper sense of responsibility, one she hadn't asked for, but somehow welcomed. When Ash finally stirred, he lifted his head slowly, blinking at the unfamiliar surroundings. The fire crackling in the wood stove reflected in his eyes, making them look brighter than they truly were. His ears twitched, his nose worked overtime, tasting the air. He let out a weak, gravelly sound, half mule, half roar. Evelyn smiled. "You're safe," she said softly. "Safer than out there." He tried to stand, but the injured paw faltered. Evelyn reached out instinctively, her hands steady for the first time in years. She slipped a folded towel under his chest and helped him ease back down. Even with the pain, the cub pressed his head into her wrist, as if accepting her presence. It had been a long time since anything in this cabin had needed her. She fetched warm water and a soft cloth. Her fingers, though old and slower than they once were, moved with a kind of practiced tenderness, like the way she used to clean her husband's hands when he became too weak to do it himself. She worked around the burns on Ash's legs, careful not to press too hard. He watched her, pupils wide, trusting in a way that made her throat tighten. "There we go," she murmured. "Just a little cleanup, nothing fancy." The electricity blinked once as a cold gust swept across the ridge. The cabin groaned, the windows rattled. Winter was creeping in early this year, and the weather reports had warned about sudden temperature drops. Evelyn made a mental note to check her heating oil levels later. Living alone this far from town came with risks, especially as things like home insurance didn't always cover damage from old, stubborn furnaces. Ash lifted his injured paw again, making a soft noise. She inspected it more closely and realized the burn wasn't deep, but the pads were sensitive and cracked. She brewed a small bowl of warm chamomile, an old trick her husband had used for injured wildlife when they lived near Yellowstone for a photography season. When she dipped the cloth and pressed it gently to Ash's paw, he let out a tiny huff of relief. "You've been through hell, haven't you?" Evelyn whispered. He nudged her elbow. The two of them stayed like that for a long while. The fire popped, the wind pressed its palm against the side of the house. The world outside felt large and brutal. Inside felt small but warm. Finally, Evelyn stood, stretching her aching knees. "I should get you something to eat." In the kitchen, she opened her pantry. Cans, jars, boxes, nothing meant for a lion cub. She frowned. The nearest grocery store was 40 minutes down winding mountain roads. Driving in the dark made her uneasy.
She'd had a car accident lawyer on speed dial after a scare last winter. But Ash needed something now, not later. She dug through old camping supplies until she found powdered goat milk intended for wildlife rescues. The expiration date was generous, the seal unbroken. She let out a breath of relief and mixed a small batch, warming it up just enough. When she returned to Ash, he lifted his head, nostrils flaring. His instinct recognized nourishment before she even set the bowl down. Evelyn positioned it close to him, and he lapped weakly at first, then with surprising determination. "There you go," she said. "Strong boy." The room felt different as he ate, less like a shelter and more like a home. While he worked through the milk, Evelyn sank into her husband's old rocking chair. The wood creaked beneath her, and memories moved through her like slow, drifting shadows. She'd told her daughter Jessica more than once that she didn't need anyone living with her, that she liked the quiet, that she had everything under control. But the truth was simpler. The silence had been swallowing her whole. Ash finished the bowl and wobbled to his feet, searching for her. When she found her knee, he pressed his head against it and curled up beside the chair. Evelyn ran her hand down his spine gently, feeling the fragility beneath his fur. "You poor thing, losing your mother? No creature should start life like that." He blinked slowly, almost in agreement. Evelyn leaned back in the chair, letting its rhythm soothe her. The fire glowed softly across the room, wrapping both of them in amber light. "If my husband were here," she whispered, "he'd tell me I'm crazy taking in a lion cub." She smiled faintly, but he'd also say love never listens to reason, and he'd be right. Ash shifted closer. His little body radiated warmth. Outside, a distant truck growled along the highway. Evelyn exhaled, wishing for a moment that things were simple, that she could just take Ash to a vet without worrying about regulations, wild animal policies, or the kind of paperwork that required a personal injury attorney if anything went wrong. But life didn't work that neatly. Still, some choices didn't need permission. "Rest," she said gently. "Tomorrow we'll figure out more." His breathing slowed, and in that quiet, Evelyn felt something she hadn't felt in years, a sense of forward motion, like her life had been paused since her husband passed, and this tiny creature had pressed the play button. Before turning off the lamp, she whispered, "Welcome home, Ash. We'll heal together."
Evelyn didn't sleep much the first night Ash spent in her cabin. She tried. God knows she tried. But every soft whimper, every restless shift of his tiny body made her sit up in bed and listen. The cub had curled himself into a corner near her bedroom door, close enough to feel her presence, far enough to keep his own fragile dignity. Each time he whimpered, Evelyn whispered through the dark, "I'm right here, sweetheart. You're not alone." By dawn, she'd slept no more than an hour, but strangely, she didn't feel drained. Caring for something small, vulnerable, and full of instinctual fight had awakened an old rhythm inside her, a rhythm she hadn't felt since her own daughter was a newborn. Age had changed her body, but not her instinct to comfort. When she stepped into the kitchen to brew her morning coffee, she heard Ash trying to stand. His claws scratched lightly against the wood floor. She turned to find him wobbling toward her, his paw still tender, but determination written all over him. He stopped in front of her, stared up with sleepy eyes, and gave a tiny, raspy roar, as if declaring he had survived the night. "Well, look at you," she said, leaning down to stroke his neck. "Already stronger." She made him another small bowl of warmed goat milk. This time he didn't need coaxing. He devoured it with a vigor that made Evelyn chuckle softly. When he finished, he nudged her leg again, wanting closeness more than anything. "You're a clingy little thing," she whispered, lifting him gently into her lap as she settled into the chair by the window. The sunrise spilled gold across the room, illuminating the ash-dusted tufts of fur on his back. No shame in wanting company. I know the feeling. As she sat rocking him, memories drifted in and out. The nights she'd spent sitting in hospital chairs, holding her husband's hand, listening to machines beep steadily in the dark. The difference was subtle but powerful. She wasn't watching someone she loved slip away this time. She was watching something fight to live. The thought filled the cabin with a quiet, aching warmth. A call came through her phone unexpectedly. She recognized the name immediately. Jessica, her daughter. Evelyn hesitated before answering, not wanting to disturb Ash, who had finally fallen asleep on her lap. "Mom?" Jessica's voice came through bright, sharp, and alert, the voice of someone always multitasking. "I saw the weather report. It says the temperature out there is dropping 10 degrees tonight. Please tell me you've checked your heating system." "I'll look at it," Evelyn said quietly. "I've managed winters before." "And your home security system? Last time I visited, the back sensor kept blinking red." "I'll handle it, I promise." Jessica paused. "You sound tired. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she replied, glancing down at the cub sleeping soundly across her legs. "Just busier than usual." "Busy with what?" Jessica pressed. "Oh, nothing important." Evelyn stroked Ash gently. "Just a new project." Jessica wasn't convinced. "Mom, you know you can always come stay with us in Phoenix. You don't have to be alone out there." "I'm not alone." The words slipped out before Evelyn could stop them. Jessica blinked. "What do you mean?" "Nothing," she said quickly. "Just talking nonsense." Before Jessica could question her further, Ash shifted, letting out a soft moan. Evelyn froze. Jessica heard it. "What was that?" her daughter asked sharply. "Was that an animal?" Evelyn forced a light laugh. "Oh, just a raccoon outside. You know how noisy they get." Jessica's voice softened with relief. "Please don't feed wildlife again, Mom. You know how the rangers warned you." "I'm not feeding anything," she said truthfully. At least, not anything Jessica needed to know about. "Now go on with your day, and I'll call you later." When the call ended, Evelyn exhaled heavily and rubbed her forehead. She wasn't lying to be reckless, only protective. She didn't want to drag her daughter into this storm of uncertain consequences. Not yet. Ash shifted again, pushing his head into her hand as if sensing her unease. "You don't make any of this easy, do you?" she murmured. Over the next few days, Ash grew noticeably stronger. He explored the cabin clumsily, tripping over rugs, pawing at furniture, and attempting tiny pounces that ended in soft thuds. His curiosity was endless. He sniffed every corner, tested every object, even tried to climb the wood pile beside the stove. Every so often, he'd trot back to Evelyn just to brush against her leg, grounding himself. One afternoon, she took him to the back porch to let him feel the sun on his fur. The late morning light warmed the boards, and Ash stretched out, soaking it in. A light breeze carried the faint smell of pine and distant smoke. Evelyn watched him, her hand resting on her cane, prepared to scoop him up at the slightest threat. "You'll see the world one day," she said softly. "But for now, this porch is enough." A sudden rustle came from the tree line. Ash stiffened. Evelyn did too. But instead of danger, a deer emerged from the shadows, ears twitching. She stopped when she saw the cub, her body going tense. Ash's instincts flared. He stood tall, well, as tall as his small frame allowed, and gave a quiet, challenging rumble. The deer bolted back into the forest. Ash looked back at Evelyn proudly, as if he had defended the territory. She laughed, truly laughed, for the first time in months. "You're fierce," she said. "I'll give you that." She scooped him into her arms, kissing the top of his head. "And thank goodness you're still small. Even the best life insurance policy wouldn't protect me if you grew 10 times your size and still tried to sleep on my lap." She carried him inside, warming his paws near the stove. As dusk settled across the ridge, Ash curled beside her, breathing softly. Evelyn watched the firelight dance along the walls and felt the familiar ache of loneliness ease for the first time in years. "You and we're going to help each other heal." Outside, the wind stirred the trees, and the forest answered with quiet stillness. Inside, Evelyn's heart, once heavy with loss, began to feel lighter. Not because her grief was gone, but because for the first time since losing her husband, she wasn't navigating it alone. By the fourth morning, Ash's strength had grown faster than Evelyn had anticipated. He was still small enough to tuck under her arm, but his paws were heavier, his balance steadier, and there was a new glint of mischief in his amber eyes. He had begun to test boundaries, batting at hanging dish towels, stalking dust motes in the sunlight, and practicing tiny, clumsy leaps that made Evelyn both laugh and worry. But the burns along his leg weren't healing as quickly as she hoped, and every time he put weight on the injured paw, a tremor of pain flickered through him. She couldn't ignore it. No matter how risky, she needed professional help. She bundled him in her husband's old coat, pressing the edges tight so no one could see his face. Ash didn't protest. He seemed to understand the vulnerability of being outside the cabin. His little body pressed firmly against her, warm and trusting. "All right, sweetheart," Evelyn whispered as she placed him gently on the passenger seat. "We'll get in, get help, and get back before anyone notices." The drive into town felt longer than usual, every passing car making her grip the steering wheel tighter. She kept the windows cracked for fresh air, and Ash poked his nose through the coat occasionally, sniffing at the unfamiliar scents. She stroked him reassuringly. "You're doing fine," she said. "We'll be home soon. And once this is over, no more trips into town unless absolutely necessary. My nerves can't handle it." When she pulled behind the veterinary clinic, her heart raced. The back entrance was empty. Thank God. She slipped out of the car, tucked Ash tightly against her chest, and moved toward the side door. The bell above the frame jingled softly as she stepped inside. Dr. Marcus Coleman emerged from the exam room, still wearing the same calm, square-shouldered posture he'd had since the day she met him 10 years ago. He was a kind man, quiet, observant, and patient. The sort of man who never seemed surprised by anything nature threw at him. But when Evelyn loosened the coat and revealed the little lion cub, even he froze. "Evelyn," he breathed, "that is not a house pet." "I know," she said quickly. "I didn't exactly find him at a shelter." He stepped closer, crouching to examine Ash. His fingers traced the edge of the burn, careful and practiced. "How long have you had him?" he asked. 4 days, she replied. "I found him in the wildfire ruins beside his mother." Coleman's eyes softened, only for a moment, then the seriousness returned. "You realize this is highly illegal," he said quietly. "Possession of a wild predator could get you fined or worse. Wildlife Services doesn't play around with things like this." "I'm not trying to keep him forever," Evelyn said, her voice trembling slightly. "He was hurt. He would have died. I just couldn't leave him." Coleman let out a slow breath and stood. "I understand compassion, but this is dangerous for you, for the cub, for the people living nearby." "I know," she said, "but sending him to one of those holding facilities isn't compassion either. They keep them in cramped cages, sedated half the time. I've seen it." He gave her a long look, the kind that said he was weighing the rules against the person standing before him. His eyes softened again. "Let me treat him," he finally said.
but you have to promise me you'll keep him inside. No backyard exploring, no porch time, not until we know what to do with him." "I promise." As he cleaned and dressed the burn, Ash whimpered softly. Evelyn stroked his head, whispering comfort. The cub relaxed under her touch, trusting her completely. Coleman noticed. He shook his head a little, murmuring, "Animals know who loves them." When he finished, he stepped aside. "I won't report you today, but Evelyn, be careful. All it takes is one curious neighbor, one hiker with a camera, one noise complaint, and they'll show up at your door." "I'll keep him hidden," she assured him. But fate has a cruel sense of timing. As she carried Ash out the back door and toward her car, a sharp clicking sound made her pause. She turned her head just enough to see a phone raised in the air, angled their way. Standing by the bike rack was Zoe Miller, the teenage girl down the hill. Her neon pink hoodie was impossible to miss. She held up her phone like she'd just spotted Bigfoot. "Whoa, Mrs. Carter, is that a—" "No," Evelyn said too quickly. "Just a big cat." "That's not a cat," she whispered in awe. She zoomed in, phone still recording. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity, not malice. "He's adorable." "Zoe," Evelyn said firmly, "you put that phone down this instant." The girl hesitated. "But my friends would freak out. This could go viral." "Put it down." "Okay, sorry. I didn't mean anything. I just didn't know you had a wild animal." "I don't," Evelyn said. "He's just staying with me for a short time, and no one can know about him. Do you understand?" "Yeah, I won't tell, I promise." She wasn't sure whether to believe her. She loaded Ash into the car and drove away quickly, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Her stomach churned with worry. It wasn't just the law she feared. It was curiosity. The kind that spread fast. The kind that attracted attention. The kind YouTube and TikTok thrived on. She once heard a talk about privacy protection and how quickly a single video could spiral out of control. She glanced at Ash. His burn had been treated, his breathing was steady. He was safe, physically. But safety, she knew, wasn't just about bandages and medicine. Not anymore. Back at the cabin, she carried Ash inside and shut the door firmly behind them. She locked it, something she rarely did. The sense of intrusion lingered in her chest. "You're okay," she whispered to the cub, setting him gently on the blanket near the stove. "I'll protect you, no matter what." Ash curled against her foot, as if the outside world didn't exist. Evelyn sat beside him, her hand resting on his warm back. But her mind replayed that moment outside the clinic, the glint of Zoe's phone camera, the curiosity in the girl's eyes. Trouble didn't need teeth or claws. Sometimes, it just needed a teenager with Wi-Fi.
Evelyn woke before sunrise, long before the desert light softened the world into gold. She hadn't slept much. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Zoe's phone pointed at Ash, the way curiosity lit up the girl's face, the way a simple tap of her finger could change everything. She sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing the stiffness from her knees, listening to the quiet breaths of the lion cub sleeping beside her. His small body rose and fell in steady rhythm, unaware that a storm, one made of people, not weather, was gathering outside their little sanctuary. When Ash finally stirred, he lifted his head and blinked up at her, his whiskers twitching. He wasn't a fragile newborn anymore. His shoulders were filling out, his steps stronger every day. But his world was still so small, just this cabin, the scent of pine floors, Evelyn's steady voice, and the safe crackle of the stove. She stroked the top of his head, feeling the soft fuzz of his fur and the warmth beneath it. "Good morning, sweetheart," she whispered. "We've got to be extra careful today. Ash yawned, revealing tiny teeth that were already sharper than they had been a week ago. He nudged her hand insistently, asking for breakfast. She prepared his formula and mixed it with the special nutrient blend Dr. Coleman had given her. The cost of the supplement reminded her of the phrase she'd once seen while researching animal care. Pet insurance quotes. Something sensible people purchased when they brought home a kitten or puppy. But no plan in the world would touch a mountain lion cub. She smiled at the absurd thought. Ash wasn't a pet. He was a promise she hadn't even meant to make. After breakfast, Evelyn carried him to the living room and set him on the thick rug. But Ash wasn't interested in toys or rest. He paced near the window, ears pricked toward the world outside. Something was pulling at him, a whisper of instinct she couldn't hear. His restlessness tightened the knot in her chest. If Ash grew louder, more energetic, more curious, he might draw attention, and attention was the one thing they couldn't afford. She tried to distract him with a makeshift feather toy she had tied together with string, but after a few minutes of half-hearted swats, he wandered back to the window, staring out with a strange focus. Evelyn followed his gaze. The yard was empty, quiet, still. But silence didn't mean safety. A sudden crunch of gravel outside made her freeze. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, approached the front door. Ash's ears perked, and a low, unfamiliar sound rumbled in his throat. Not quite a growl, but close. Evelyn stepped toward the window, pulling the curtain back just an inch. A shadow stood on the porch. Her heart skipped. Not Zoe, not Dr. Coleman, not any neighbor she recognized. A tall man wearing a beige uniform, a state badge catching the morning light. Wildlife Services. Evelyn's pulse hammered in her ears. Had Zoe posted something? Had someone called in a tip? Or was this just a routine check after the fire zone, a coincidence arriving at the exact wrong time? Ash sensed her fear. The cub pressed against her leg, whining softly. She scooped him into her arms, her mind racing. She couldn't hide him in the bedroom. The windows were too low. Not the pantry, they'd smell him. Not the bathroom, too small, too echoing, too risky. Another knock, louder this time. "Ma'am, State Wildlife Services, need to speak with you." Evelyn moved quickly, quietly, her breath shallow, as she eased open the narrow storage cabinet beside the old wood stove. It was dark, lined with blankets and firewood bins, not ideal, but it was the only place with no direct sightline from the windows or door. She set Ash inside gently. He looked up at her, confused, his tiny muzzle brushing her hand. "Stay quiet," she whispered, touching her forehead to his for one trembling second. "Please." She closed the door. By the time she opened the front door, her face was calm, composed, an old habit from decades of teaching. The wildlife officer tipped his hat. "Morning, ma'am. Sorry to bother you so early. We're following up on the fire zone, making sure folks haven't run into displaced animals. We've had reports of orphaned predators wandering near homes." Evelyn nodded, her hands tucked behind her back to hide the shaking. "I haven't seen anything unusual. Just smoke, ash, and a lot of quiet." He glanced past her shoulder. "Mind if I take a quick look around? Standard protocol." Her throat tightened. "Is that really necessary?" "I'm afraid so, ma'am." Behind the thin cabinet door, Ash let out the faintest sound, a soft, questioning chirp, almost inaudible. But Evelyn heard it. Her blood froze. The officer paused. "You hear that?" he asked. Her mind scrambled for an answer, any answer. Then she forced a tired smile. "Old stove. Makes all kinds of noises when it heats up." The officer looked unconvinced. He stepped forward, boots creaking on the cabin floorboards. Evelyn felt sweat prick the back of her neck. He walked straight past me, heading toward the living room, toward the cabinet. Each step felt like destiny closing in. But just as he neared the stove, a loud knock sounded at the porch, sharp, urgent, unexpected. The officer turned. "Expecting someone?" She shook her head. He walked to the door and opened it. There stood Zoe Miller, out of breath, clutching her bike helmet, cheeks pink from the cold. "Mrs. Carter, you, left something at the clinic yesterday." Evelyn blinked. "I did?" Zoe nodded frantically and held out an empty tote bag. "Dr. Coleman said to return it. He was real insistent." The officer eyed the girl suspiciously. Zoe kept her smile steady. Not too wide, not too innocent, just believable enough. It worked. The officer tipped his head. "Ladies, have a good morning." He stepped outside and walked toward his truck without another question. Evelyn waited until the engine faded down the road before closing the door and locking it tight. Then she turned to Zoe, and the teenager whispered, "I saw his truck. I figured you needed help." For a long moment, Evelyn couldn't speak. Relief, fear, gratitude, all of it, tangled together. Finally, she let out a shaky breath. "Thank you, Zoe." The girl smiled. "So, I guess this makes us a team." Evelyn wasn't ready for a team, not yet. But as she opened the cabinet and Ash leapt into her arms, she knew one thing for certain. Survival, hers and the cubs, no longer depended on secrecy alone. It depended on trust.
Ash's recovery should have brought peace, but instead it ushered in a strange new tension. By the time the burns along his leg had healed into soft pink lines, he had grown larger, noticeably larger. His paws were almost too big for his body, his stride heavier, his gaze sharper. The shy, trembling cub she'd rescued had transformed into a young predator whose instincts were beginning to unfurl like spring leaves. Evelyn watched him pace near the cabin door that morning, his tail flicking with agitated energy. She'd swept the floor twice already, wiped down the counters, and reheated her coffee, still unable to shake the encounter with the wildlife officer or the unexpected alliance with Zoe. Trouble had stepped too close to her front porch, and she knew it wouldn't be the last time. Ash pressed his nose against the doorframe, inhaling the scents drifting in from the desert wind, his muscles tensed, almost vibrating. That restlessness scared her more than anything. It wasn't misbehavior, it wasn't boredom, it was instinct, a wild, ancient drumbeat tapping beneath his ribs. "You can't go out," she whispered, kneeling beside him. "Not yet, not now. It's too dangerous." Ash turned toward her, his amber eyes softening, but his body didn't relax. He was torn between the safety she offered and a world calling to him from beyond the wooden walls. Evelyn distracted him with his puzzle feeder, something she'd improvised using a thick tin can and dried pieces of venison. She'd read on a wildlife care website, while scrolling through articles filled with credit repair services ads, that puzzles could help keep young predators mentally stimulated. Ash batted the feeder across the rug, pawing and rolling it until the meat fell out. But his focus was shallow, fleeting. Every few minutes he abandoned the game to return to the door, staring out as if something waited for him there. By mid-morning, Zoe pedaled up the dirt road, her bike rattling over stones. Evelyn met her outside, leaving Ash inside where he couldn't be seen. Zoe leaned her bike against the porch and tugged off her helmet, cheeks flushed from the ride. "I didn't see any wildlife trucks, at least not on my way here." "That's a comfort," Evelyn replied, though the anxiety in her chest remained. Zoe hesitated. "Can I see him?" Evelyn studied her face. The girl had kept their secret, so far, and she had stepped in at exactly the right moment yesterday. But trust was something Evelyn never gave lightly, especially now. Finally, she nodded. Only for a minute, and no pictures, no videos, no posts.
not even to your close friends." Zoe held up both hands. "I swear." Inside, Ash perked up as soon as Zoe stepped through the door. He sniffed the air, recognizing her scent. She crouched, giving him space. Slowly, he padded toward her, nose twitching, tail dipping with curiosity instead of fear. "He's beautiful," Zoe whispered, her voice soft with genuine awe. "He's growing," Evelyn said, "faster than I expected." Zoe nodded. "Wildcats do that. It's like they double overnight." Ash nudged Zoe's hand. She laughed quietly and rubbed his head gently. Evelyn felt a strange warmth bloom in her chest. Relief, maybe, or the comfort of not carrying the burden alone anymore. Zoe had a steadiness she hadn't expected from a teenager, and Ash trusted her. That mattered. But as the morning light shifted, Ash's restlessness returned. He circled the door again, pawed at the frame, then let out a soft huffing sound. Zoe noticed immediately. "He wants out." "I know," Evelyn replied, "but he can't." "What if we found a way," Zoe suggested, lowering her voice, "to let him move without being seen?" Evelyn frowned. "What do you mean?" Zoe's eyes brightened with an idea. "There's that old storm cellar behind your shed, the one nobody uses anymore. The door opens toward the back field, and the field is hidden from the road. He could stretch his legs there, just a few minutes at a time. Nobody would see." The idea unsettled Evelyn. Letting Ash outside felt like inviting danger, but keeping him locked inside forever was impossible. Sooner or later, something would break. Ash's spirit, or the thin walls between them and discovery. "Just for a little while," Zoe coaxed, "and I'll help keep watch." Evelyn hesitated for several long seconds, then she exhaled. "All right, but stay close. And if he gets too excited, I'll tell you," Zoe grinned. "Promise." They guided Ash carefully through the back hallway, avoiding windows, avoiding light. Evelyn opened the narrow door beside the pantry, revealing the path leading behind the shed. The wind carried warm earth and desert sage, and Ash inhaled deeply, his entire body shifting forward with anticipation. In the shadow of the shed stood the old cellar door, its hinges rusted but still functional. Evelyn lifted it slowly. The space wasn't large, but the grassy field behind it stretched several yards before it dipped into scrub brush, enough room for Ash to move without being seen from the road. As soon as the door opened, Ash stepped out, uncertain at first. Then the air hit him, fresh, wild, unfiltered. His posture changed instantly. His shoulders rose, his ears flicked. He lifted his head to the wind as though hearing a voice only he could understand. Then he ran. Not far, just enough to test his legs, to stretch muscles that had been confined too long. His movements were graceful, almost lyrical, the way young predators explored the world with both caution and wonder. Zoe watched with wide eyes. "He's born for this," she whispered. "I know," Evelyn murmured. But even as she said it, a deep ache formed behind her ribs, because every leap, every stretch, every wild motion was a reminder of the truth she dared not say out loud. One day she would have to let him go. And when that day came, she might lose him forever. For now, though, Ash was here, safe, growing, learning the world one small step at a time. Evelyn watched him run through the tall grass, sunlight catching on his golden coat, and she whispered into the wind, "Not yet. Please, not yet."
The following days unfolded with a fragile sort of rhythm, one stitched together by caution, habit, and the quiet hope that peace might hold just a little longer. Evelyn rose before sunrise each morning, listening to Ash's increasingly confident footsteps as he explored the living room. He was stronger now, his muscles more defined, his movements more deliberate. Every leap, every stretch, every twitch of his years told her he was changing faster than she could prepare for. Still, there were moments, small, precious ones, when he reminded her of the frightened cub she'd found beside his mother, when he would curl against her leg or nuzzle into her hand after a long day. But those moments were becoming fewer as instinct shaped him into something undeniably wild. On the third morning after his first run in the field, Ash began pacing before she could even finish warming his milk. His tail flicked sharply and his ears swiveled toward the back door. Evelyn tried distracting him with a strip of venison, but he barely sniffed it. Something outside held his attention, something she couldn't hear or smell. When Zoe arrived, this time carrying a backpack filled with notebooks and a pair of old binoculars, Ash went straight to her. He brushed against her knee, then darted back to the door, as if urging them to follow. "He's restless again," Zoe said, kneeling beside him. "It's stronger than before. It feels different." Zoe lifted the binoculars and peered through the kitchen window. "The field looks quiet, but let's go slow today, in case he's reacting to something." They moved cautiously through the back hallway, Evelyn's heart pounding with the same controlled fear that had become a familiar ache in her chest. She opened the cellar door and Ash slipped outside, but he didn't run this time. He crouched low, sniffing the air with sharp, quick movements. The fur along his spine lifted slightly. "What's wrong with him?" Zoe whispered. Evelyn shook her head. "I've never seen him so alert." Ash took a few steps forward, then froze, staring toward the ridge at the far edge of the field. The ridge that marked the beginning of the burned-out zone, the place where Evelyn had found him, the place where everything had begun. Before she could call him back, Ash let out a soft, trembling sound. Not fear, not excitement, recognition. Evelyn followed his gaze. At first, she saw nothing, only a stretch of dark, jagged earth where the fire had taken everything. Then slowly, something moved, a faint shift between the charred tree trunks. A silhouette, low to the ground, unsteady. A young mountain lion. No, too small for an adult, but too large to be Ash. Zoe gasped. Is that another cub?" Evelyn's breath caught. It couldn't be. She had searched the entire area when she found Ash, but fires could scatter animals miles apart, and sometimes survivors didn't show themselves for days. The young lion on the ridge stood shakily, its ribs visible beneath a dirty coat, its steps timid and weak. It watched Ash with a mixture of hope and fear, its tail tucked close to its body. Ash answered with a soft chirp, the same sound he'd made the night she rescued him, a sound meant for siblings. Evelyn's legs nearly gave out. "They know each other," she whispered. Zoe stared in stunned silence. You think they're siblings?" Evelyn finished. "Yes." Ash took a step toward the ridge, then another. Evelyn reached out instinctively. "Ash, no!" He stopped at her voice, but his body trembled with wanting to go to the other cub, wanting to connect with something that belonged to his blood, his past, his pain. Zoe's expression tightened. "Mrs. Carter, we can't just leave the other one out there." "I know, but we can't just run out and grab it either. If Wildlife Services sees us anywhere near a second cub..." "They won't," Zoe interjected firmly. "We'll be careful." Ash whimpered and looked back at Evelyn, as if pleading. Her heart cracked cleanly down the middle. She had saved him once. The least she could do was try to save the one tied to him by the same fire. "Stay here with Ash. I'll get closer." Slowly. Zoe grabbed her wrist. "You shouldn't go alone. I won't go far. I just need to see its condition."
With her breath sticking in her throat, Evelyn stepped through the cellar opening and moved toward the ridge, her boots silent on the dry grass. Every few steps she paused, listening, watching, making sure no trucks rumbled down the road, no movement came from the tree line except the trembling young cub. When she drew within 40 feet, the other lion backed up, whining softly. It didn't run, it didn't snarl. It simply trembled as though its body was too weak to choose fight or flight. "It's all right," she murmured, her voice gentle, the same tone she'd used when she found Ash. The cub's eyes, wide, amber, frightened, fixed on her. Behind her, Ash let out another chirp, softer this time, but full of longing. Evelyn knelt slowly. The cub's ribs rose and fell rapidly, its breath shaky and shallow. It looked like it hadn't eaten properly in days, weeks even. "It's starving," she whispered to herself. A sudden gust of wind kicked up dust, and the cub flinched violently. Then, in one heartbreaking motion, it took a clumsy step forward, toward Ash's voice. Zoe gasped behind her. "Mrs. Carter, I think it wants help." Evelyn extended her hand slightly, not touching, not pushing, just offering presence. But just as the cub moved closer, a loud crack echoed from the forest, like a branch snapping under heavy boots. The cub jerked violently. Ash yowled from the field, and Evelyn's blood turned cold. That sound wasn't an animal. Someone else was out there, watching, listening, maybe approaching. "Zoe," Evelyn whispered without turning her head, "take Ash inside, now." Zoe didn't question. She scooped up Ash, holding him tightly even as he squirmed, and hurried back through the cellar door. Evelyn stood slowly, keeping her eyes on the ridge, the burned trees, the shadows moving just beyond her vision. "Come on, sweetheart," she murmured to the trembling cub. "We have to go." But the young lion didn't move again. It stared behind her, past her, toward the forest. Its entire body stiffened. Evelyn turned. A figure stood between the charred pines, tall, motionless, watching her. Not the wildlife officer, not a neighbor, and not a person she recognized. The figure stepped forward. Evelyn's breath hitched. This was no coincidence. Someone had been tracking the cubs, and she had just walked straight into their path.
Evelyn's breath caught as the figure stepped out from between the charred pines. He moved with the slow confidence of someone who belonged there, or someone who believed he did. Sunlight fell across his face, revealing sharp cheekbones, a short graying beard, and eyes that scanned the landscape with unsettling precision. Not curious, not surprised, searching. The weak cub at the ridge whimpered and stumbled backward. Evelyn instinctively took one step toward it, placing herself between the frightened animal and the stranger without even thinking. Her heart drummed hard enough to shake her ribs, but her voice stayed calm. Years of teaching had given her that much. "Can I help you?" she called out, keeping her distance. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he surveyed the ground around her, then lifted his gaze to the young cub behind her. His expression tightened with something that looked uncomfortably like calculation. Finally, he spoke. "Didn't expect to see anyone out here." His voice was low, smooth, almost polite, but there was no softness in it, no warmth. "This is private property," Evelyn replied, standing a little taller. "You're trespassing." He gave a half shrug. "Didn't see any signs. I'm tracking wildlife displaced by the fires.
Dangerous time for folks to wander near the ridge. That explanation should have made sense, maybe even sounded reassuring, but it didn't. Not with the way he studied the cub, not with the way he kept shifting his weight as though preparing to step closer. "I'm fine," Evelyn said, firmly. "If you're with Wildlife Services, you should have a truck or marked gear." He smiled, a thin, unpleasant smile. "I work independently." Independent, not government, not licensed, not safe. A chill ran down her spine. Behind her, the small cub let out a soft cry, weak but clear. The man's attention snapped toward the sound so fast that the muscles in his jaw twitched. "How long's that one been out here?" he asked. "Not long," she lied. "I was just passing through and found it." He took a step closer. Evelyn stepped back immediately, raising her hand. "Don't." The man's eyebrows lifted. "You planning to take it home? Raise it yourself?" His tone was mocking now. "Not exactly legal. Folks get into trouble that way. Fines, investigations, even property searches." She froze. He knew, or he suspected, or he was bluffing. She couldn't tell which was worse. "I'm calling someone to come help," she said, forcing steadiness into her voice. "There's no reason for you to be here." He studied her a long moment, then flicked his gaze toward the cabin, toward the direction Zoe had run with Ash. Her throat dried. He had noticed. The slightest shift in her eyes must have given everything away, because the man's expression sharpened with interest. "You live there?" he asked. "Just you?" Evelyn held her ground, but every instinct in her screamed to run, to hide, to block his view of the cabin entirely. "I think you should leave," she said again, this time with a command that came from someplace deep, someplace unshakable. Surprisingly, he didn't argue. He nodded once, slow and deliberate. "All right, but I'll be back tomorrow. I always check the burn perimeter around this time. Happens like clockwork." The way he said it felt like a warning, dressed up as routine. He backed away, never turning his back on her, until he disappeared into the scorched trees and the silence settled again like heavy snow. For several seconds, Evelyn couldn't move. Her knees felt weak, her palms slick with sweat, and her breath shallow. The burned ridge seemed to hold the man's shadow long after he was gone. Then the weak cub whimpered again. She turned immediately. The little lion's legs buckled and it collapsed onto the ash-covered ground, panting hard. Instinct overrode fear. She rushed to its side, kneeling in the soot. The cub was trembling uncontrollably. Hunger, exhaustion, fear, all of it wrapped together. "It's all right," she whispered, touching its head gently. "You're safe now. I've got you." But even as she said it, she knew safety had become a fragile word. With trembling arms, she lifted the young lion against her chest. It weighed more than she expected, far more than Ash had when she first found him, but she held on tight, supporting its body as she hurried back toward the cellar door. Zoe met her halfway, Ash squirming in her arms, frantic with worry. "Oh my God, Mrs. Carter, is that—" "She's breathing." "The sibling," Evelyn confirmed, pushing the cellar door open with her shoulder. "Close it behind me, quickly." They slipped inside, just as a gust of wind rolled across the field, carrying the scent of pine and charred earth. Zoe bolted the door and followed Evelyn into the kitchen, where she laid the trembling cub onto a thick blanket. Ash hurried forward, chirping frantically. The weak cub blinked up at him, recognizing him even through exhaustion. Their small heads touched, and Ash whimpered, pressing against his sibling with desperate tenderness. Tears stung Evelyn's eyes. Zoe wiped her own cheeks. "We have to help it. We can't let it die." "We won't," Evelyn said, though her voice wavered. "But this changes everything." Because now she wasn't hiding one illegal mountain lion cub. She was hiding two. And worse, someone out there knew something was going on. She cleaned the cub's wounds, fed it tiny drops of warm broth, and wrapped it in soft towels. Ash lay beside his sibling the entire time, his body curled protectively around the weakened form. When the cub finally fell asleep, breathing steadier but still shallow, Evelyn stepped into the hallway and leaned against the wall, pressing her hand over her pounding heart. Zoe followed her. "Who was that man?" "I don't know," Evelyn whispered, "but he wasn't from Wildlife Services, and he wasn't just hiking." Zoe swallowed hard. "You think he's dangerous?" "Yes," Evelyn admitted, her voice trembling. "I think he's looking for the cubs." Zoe glanced toward the kitchen, where Ash lay curled around the survivor. "What do we do now?" Evelyn straightened, steadying her breath. Fear had its place, but so did resolve. "We protect them," she said. But as she spoke, she couldn't shake the chilling truth. The man had said he would return, and next time, he might not come alone.
The house felt different the next morning. Quieter, heavier, as if the walls themselves sensed what Evelyn already knew. Time was running out. The siblings lay curled together near the wood stove, the stronger cub pressed protectively around the weaker one. Ash looked up whenever Evelyn moved, his eyes never fully relaxing, as though he feared she might disappear if he blinked too long. Evelyn placed a hand on his head, whispering softly, "You're safe. I promise you're both safe." But she wasn't sure she believed her own words. Not after yesterday. Not after the man in the burned trees. Not after the way he had stared at her cabin as though it were already marked on a map. By mid-morning, Zoe arrived again, earlier than usual this time, pedaling fast enough that dust trailed behind her. She burst through the back door without knocking, cheeks flushed with worry. "Mrs. Carter, someone was parked at the end of your road last night." Evelyn's breath stuttered. "Who?" "I couldn't see clearly," Zoe said. "A dark truck, not Wildlife Services, and when I got closer, it just drove off." The words settled into the room like ice. Evelyn locked the back door, then the front, sliding each deadbolt with trembling fingers. The house felt too small now, too exposed, and the cubs, so helpless, so young, made everything more urgent. The weaker sibling shifted on the blanket, letting out a thin whine. Zoe knelt beside it, stroking its head gently. "He's still cold." "He needs warmth and food," Evelyn said, mixing another small batch of broth. "But he's improving. A day ago, he could barely stand." Zoe fed the cub carefully with the syringe they'd used for Ash weeks earlier. Every swallow seemed like a victory. Ash nudged his sibling afterward, licking its ears with the seriousness of a creature who understood far more than he should. For a moment, all too brief, the cabin felt warm again, like any other quiet home on a quiet morning. Then a vehicle rumbled in the distance. Zoe froze, her eyes wide. "Is that him?" Evelyn didn't answer. She stepped to the window and peered through the smallest sliver of curtain. Dust lifted on the road, but the car wasn't close enough yet to identify. "Turn off the lights," she whispered. Zoe rushed to flip the switches. Evelyn scooped up both cubs, carrying them to the interior pantry where their crates sat ready in case of emergency. She hated locking them inside, but fear had no space for hesitation now. Ash resisted at first, his claws catching her sleeve, but she pressed her forehead gently to his.
Just for a few minutes, I need you to trust me." He finally settled, nuzzling the weaker cub as she closed the crate door. Outside, the engine grew louder. Zoe whispered, "If it's him, what do we do?" Evelyn steadied her breath. "We stay calm, we don't open the door, and we don't let him see anything." They waited. The engine slowed, then stopped. Gravel crunched under heavy footsteps. Zoe grabbed Evelyn's sleeve, whispering, "He's coming." 3 loud knocks echoed through the cabin. Not polite, not hesitant, demanding. Evelyn approached the door cautiously. "Who is it?" A man's voice answered, but not the one from the ridge. "Ma'am, Sheriff's Department." Zoe's jaw dropped. "What? Did someone report you?" Evelyn unlocked only the top latch and opened the door an inch. A uniformed deputy stood outside, young, clean-cut, and holding a notepad. "Morning, ma'am. We've had reports of suspicious activity near your property. A hiker said he saw someone wandering the burned forest carrying what looked like traps." Evelyn's breath stuttered. "Traps?" "Yes, ma'am. Steel foothold traps from the description. Illegal as hell on public land, especially with the wildlife situation after the fire." He glanced over her shoulder into the dim cabin. "You seen anyone around?" She thought of the man yesterday, the way he had scanned the field, the way he had said he would return. "Yes," Evelyn said carefully. "A man was near the ridge. He claimed he was tracking animals." "Did he give a name?" "No." The deputy scribbled quickly. "Tall, gray beard?" "Yes." "That's the one," he muttered. "We've had 2 calls about him. Folks say he's been hanging around for days." Zoe whispered under her breath, "Days, not hours." Evelyn understood immediately. The man hadn't stumbled onto her property. He had been watching the area long before she found the sibling cub. The deputy snapped his notebook shut. "If he comes back, call us immediately. Do not approach him." "We won't," Evelyn said. He nodded once, tipped his hat politely, and returned to his patrol car. As the dust cloud faded behind him, Evelyn closed the door, locking each bolt with deliberate care. Zoe exhaled shakily. "Okay, that's good, right? The sheriff's department is looking for that man. That means we're safer now." Evelyn headed, "No, Zoe. It means he's more desperate than we realized, and if he's setting traps, he's hunting. Not legally, not ethically, and certainly not for the reasons he claims." Zoe swallowed hard. "Then we have to protect the cubs even more." Evelyn nodded, her voice firm. "We do, and that starts with keeping them completely out of sight." She carried the cubs from the pantry and settled them back onto their blankets. The weaker sibling lifted its head, a small but real sign of strength. Ash curled around it as if shielding it from a world neither of them understood. For a moment, Evelyn allowed herself the smallest breath of relief, but just as she exhaled, something caught her eye outside the window. A glint, not from the sun, from glass. Zoe saw it too. "Did you see that?" Evelyn's stomach dropped. Someone was watching the cabin. They both ducked instinctively, pressing their backs against the wall, breathing hard, waiting. Seconds passed, then a silhouette moved behind the thick shrubs near the tree line, too big to be an animal, too slow to be the deputy, too cautious to be a neighbor. Evelyn's voice came out as a whisper, but every word was sharp with urgency. "He's here."
Evelyn pulled Zoe away from the window, her heart pounding so loud she could hear it in her ears. The shadow outside moved with the slow, deliberate precision of someone who had hours, maybe days of practice stalking this exact patch of land. Whoever he wasn't simply curious, he was hunting. And this time, he wasn't alone. The cubs sensed the tension. Ash pressed himself against his sibling, ears pinned flat, eyes locked on the back door. The weaker cub trembled, but tried to stand, letting out a thin, shaky cry. Evelyn knelt and stroked their heads. "It's all right," she whispered, even though it wasn't.
We're going to protect you." Zoe's voice shook. "Mrs. Carter, we should call the sheriff again." "We will," Evelyn said, "but if the man hears the call, he might force his way in before help arrives." Zoe swallowed hard. "Then what do we do?" Evelyn straightened, resolve settling over her like armor. "We move the cubs, now, out of the house." "Out?" Zoe stared at her in disbelief. "Yes. He's watching the cabin, not the old storm cellar. If he tries to break in, I want the cubs nowhere near this building." Zoe nodded, fear tightening her features, but she didn't protest. She trusted Evelyn, and the cubs trusted her. Evelyn wrapped the weaker sibling in a thick blanket and motioned for Zoe to carry Ash. Together, they slipped into the back hallway. The cellar door was just steps away, but each footstep felt like crossing a minefield. Outside, twigs snapped. Zoe froze. "He's close." "Keep moving," Evelyn whispered. "Quietly." They reached the cellar door. Evelyn pushed it open slowly, praying the hinges wouldn't squeal. Wind rushed in, carrying dry earth and cold night air. Zoe slipped down the steps first, cradling Ash. Evelyn followed, clutching the second cub to her chest. When she pulled the cellar door down behind them, darkness wrapped around them, cool and suffocating. But the cubs relaxed. This space was quiet, sheltered, hidden. "Stay here," Evelyn whispered. "Keep them safe." Zoe's eyes widened. "Where are you going?" "To distract him," Evelyn said. "He came for the cubs. If he thinks I have them inside the cabin, he'll go there and stay away from you." Zoe grabbed her arm. "Mrs. Carter, no! It's too dangerous." Evelyn placed a hand on her cheek. "You've saved us more than once. Now it's my turn." Before Zoe could speak, Evelyn climbed out of the cellar and closed the door gently behind her. The yard was dim, washed in blue-gray light. She forced her steps steady as she approached the cabin. A loud thud hit the side of the house. Evelyn startled, but then she saw him, the man from the ridge, crouched near the front porch peering into the living room window. His posture was tense, agitated, as if he expected to find something inside and didn't. Then he turned slowly, his eyes locking on her. "You again," he said, straightening. "You've been busy." "What do you want?" Evelyn asked, keeping her voice strong. "You know what I'm after. Those cubs. Fire scatters wildlife all over the county. People lose track. Some animals go missing. Some," paused, "and some end up where they don't belong." Evelyn didn't flinch. "They belong with their own kind, not with someone who sets illegal traps." His eyes narrowed. "Funny thing about traps, they catch what they're meant to find, and sometimes," he said, stepping even closer, "they catch what someone's trying very hard to hide." Evelyn backed towards the porch, not daring to let him see the direction of the cellar. "Stay where you are," he ordered. But before he could advance, a deep growl rolled across the field. Low, powerful, adult. It wasn't Ash, and it definitely wasn't the sibling. The growl came again, echoing across the ridge, the kind of sound that came from a fully grown mountain lion. The man stiffened, turning sharply towards the burned hillside. "What the—" A large silhouette appeared at the edge of the field, taller than any human crouched in the brush. Tawny fur gleamed in the moonlight. Muscles rippled under its coat. The lion's eyes burned like twin amber lanterns in the dark. Zoe must have heard it too. The cellar door creaked open an inch. "Mrs. Carter!" Evelyn lifted her hand behind her, signaling Zoe to stay down. The man didn't move. His breath came fast and uneven. This can't be. I've tracked this ridge for days. No adult should be here." But it was. A lion had survived the fire, against every odd, against every assumption. The big cat stepped forward, muscles coiled, ears flat. Protectiveness radiated off its body, an instinct as ancient as the earth itself. The man stumbled backwards, his bravado crumbling. He reached for something inside his coat. Evelyn's eyes widened. "Don't you dare!" But he ignored her. The lion roared. The sound shattered the night, vibrating through the ground. The man dropped whatever he'd been reaching for and bolted towards the trail that led away from the cabin. He tripped once, scrambled upright, and disappeared into the darkness. The lion didn't chase him. Instead, it turned its head towards Evelyn. Not threatening, not hungry, simply watching. The truth hit her with a force that brought tears to her eyes. This wasn't just any mountain lion. This was the mother. Burned, injured, but alive. She walked forward slowly, limping but undeniably strong. Her gaze drifted towards the cellar, towards the cubs she'd lost, towards the cubs Evelyn had saved. Evelyn whispered, voice cracking, "They're here! Your babies are here!" Zoe opened the cellar door fully now, both cubs peeking out with tired, uncertain eyes. The mother lion stepped closer, lowering her head. Ash let out a small chirp. His sibling answered weakly. The mother nuzzled them both, a deep rumble vibrating through her chest, a sound of relief, of recognition, of impossible reunion. Zoe wiped her tears. Evelyn did too. After a long moment, the mother lion lifted her head and looked at Evelyn, really looked at her. Not as a threat, not as a stranger, but almost like an ally. Evelyn whispered, "Take them home." The lion nudged her cubs gently, guiding them towards the ridge. Ash hesitated, turning back once to look at Evelyn. She smiled through tears. "Go on, sweetheart, you're ready." Ash chirped softly, then followed his mother into the moonlit field. The smaller cubs struggled, but the mother supported it with her body as they disappeared into the dark. Evelyn watched until the shadows swallowed them. Zoe stepped beside her. "You did it," she whispered. "You saved them." "No," Evelyn said softly. "They saved themselves. I just kept them safe long enough to find their way back." The night settled into silence. The danger had passed. The cubs were home. And for the first time in weeks, Evelyn felt the weight lift from her chest. Zoe leaned on her shoulder. "What happens now?" Evelyn smiled, tired but peaceful. "Now," she said, "we rest. And when the world is quiet again," she glanced at the ridge, "we listen for their footsteps in the wild." The story had begun with loss, but it ended with return. And for both Evelyn and the lions, everything had changed forever.